Are you a roofing contractor that is interested in learning more about low-rise adhesives? What are some of the things you need to know? Let's find out. Hi, this is Daniel Laxtons, and you're listening to the Roofing Business Builder podcast. Now, I've been in the roofing industry for over 30 years, and I am your personal commercial roofing guru. What I'm doing is helping contractors just like you to grow their businesses into the multi-millions. Now, today we're going to talk about adhesives, and I have a special guest, Dan Feris. He works for ICP as a territory manager, and I've known him for years. He helps contractors just like you to go through the hoops of certain things that you need to know so we don't make some of those mistakes that can cost thousands of dollars. So, before we get into my interview with Dan, I'd like to start off with an intention for this podcast. Now, this podcast intention is I utilize other people's skill set to help grow my business. I utilize other people's skill sets to help grow my business. And let's face it, as entrepreneurs, yes, we wear a lot of hats. We have to do all segments of the roofing industry to run the business, but this is only in the beginning. As you grow your business, you need to utilize other people that have skill sets that are beyond your skill set. It's better to hire people that know a little bit more about certain subjects in this industry that we don't know. So take advantage in a good way of utilizing other people's skill sets. They will help you to grow your business, and we want your business to soar. So now it's time to get into my interview with Dan Feris. Again, he is a territory manager for ICP. They manufacture low-rise adhesives. So let's look into my interview with Dan Feris. So Dan, welcome to the show.
Well, it's great to be here, Daniel.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you on the show because, with Roofing Business Builder, we talk about a lot of different things that help roofers to grow their business into the multi-millions. And to have a couple of extra arrows in the quiver, so to speak, is so important. And plus, some of the roofers, they'll run into situations where someone like you is exactly what they need. So, but I really should introduce who you are again. Now Dan, again, works for ICP, and they handle, well, Dan, tell us, well, before we get into to ICP and adhesives, tell us about your journey in the roofing industry. How did you get here, and what do you love about your career?
Well, so growing up in Florida, my father has always been in the roofing business. He was a general contractor. He worked for a number of different membrane manufacturers, and I've always been around it. Uh, my summer jobs in high school were always working for a distributor, so I was either loading shingles on a roof or carrying drywall. Uh, Hot Florida sun. So basically, he said, "Hey, I'm going to send you to college because I don't want you ever going in the roofing business." So I went to college. I got my degree at University of South Florida, and I went into the transportation business industry. I was working in Denver, Colorado in 2004, 2005, when all the hurricanes started going through Florida. And at the time, my father was a district manager for a very large roofing distributor. Uh, Got a call from him one day saying, "Hey, remember what I told you about going to college?" I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I do. Like it was yesterday." He goes, "I lied." He goes, "I need you to come work for us." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "We're opening up branches in Florida left and right." And the minute you said Florida and the opportunity to go back to Florida, back home or close to home, uh, we kind of made the decision. And we went to we went to Pensacola, and we opened up a branch in Pensacola. Um, Worked there, opened that branch up. We did really well for 3-4 years, and all of a sudden, uh, it was like one day somebody came in and turned the light switch off. The whole Northwest Panhandle was re-roofed, and it was done. So my wife and I decided to move back to Houston, and her mother was sick at the time, and so we moved in with her. And as I moved back to Houston, the minute I put my resume up, I get a phone call from a gentleman who was my Polyfoam rep. And Polyfoam had just been acquired by 3M. And he asked,
Yes.
"Sure, you're still in Houston?" He goes, "Last time I saw you, you were in Pensacola." I said, "I'm in Houston." He goes, "I need a regional sales manager for Polyfoam, basically because we got bought by 3M." He goes, "Would you like the job?" I'm like, "Absolutely, it'd be a perfect fit." So basically, that's kind of how I got to ICP, 3M, and then ICP. ICP acquired us from 3M about 4 years ago. So that's pretty much
when we first met.
into the business.
Yeah, when we first met, it was still 3M.
Yes, correct.
And how long have we known each other now?
Well, I'm going on year number 12. So I would say probably 9 years, 10 years.
At least, yeah. I remember we first hung out because I was like, hey, if this guy's going to help train my customers, I want someone like you, especially because of your personality too. You really sincerely care about people. But it's so funny, and I know a lot of people listening to the program have heard me say this before, but you don't find the roofing industry; the roofing industry finds you, and and you can't escape the roofing industry either, because like your dad was trying to have an escape route for you, but it just sucks you back in like a black hole.
once you started, you don't want to get out. I mean,
No.
Relationships, and you see the kind of people that are in it. It's just good, hardworking people who and it's so hard to get people, the younger generation to realize that this is a viable industry to be in, and
lots of money and family relationships.
Yes.
It's like we're all family in this business together. So that's another reason why you don't want to burn bridges or mess up your reputation, because down the line you get phone calls from other people say, hey, I just got funded with $50 million to do this, and I'd like to bring you on, right?
It's funny. First couple of years I was doing this job, I was in Louisiana, and I was in a contractor's office. It was in Baton Rouge, and we were talking about the industry, and he's like, "Yeah, we'll see if you're around in the next 5-6 years." I said, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Being in the roofing industry, it's kind of like getting blackjack cement on you. Once you get it on, you can never get it off you." And I've never forgotten that.
There's a good one. I like that.
That's a very good analogy.
So, ICP acquired from 3M. But now these companies, what was it first called? Polyfoam, right?
Polyfoam Products.
Yeah. And so they're creating a low rise adhesive. And so the question is well, first of all, what is a low rise adhesive? Why are contractors in need of this product? And, what are some of the uses that we can use them for?
So let me give you some background about Polyfoam. Polyfoam was developed after Hurricane Andrew. After all the residential tile was blown off in Miami, two guys in Tomball, Texas, in their garage, developed a higher rise foam adhesive to adhere clay and concrete tiles to residential and condominium roofs in South Florida. Well, basically, number one, it reduced any penetrations going into the existing roof. They were able to get a job done in half the time with the high-rise foam, and
yeah,
it's
really quick.
In this situation, they would lay a patty and then stick the tile right on there.
Oh wow!
And on top of that, the wind uplifts became huge. I mean, they would get like a 1-240 for a residential roof, which
wow, that's incredible.
Right. So as they grew that business and they started maxing that business out, they were looking for another way to get into to stay in the foam market, and so that's what they got into low-rise foam, the commercial business. They realized, well, 95% of this residential foam we make goes to South Florida. Well, there's a low-rise market for adhering board stock, ISO, cover board, and fleece back membrane that can go throughout the whole country, that's specified throughout the whole country. So they developed a low-rise foam, and that's how basically my job and CR20 and BoardMax, our low-rise foam products have come into existence.
That's amazing. And some of the applications I've always seen throughout the time, it being in Texas, what we found is there's a lot of lightweight concrete that was poured over like chicken wire. And when it comes to re-roofing, that if it only had one roof, that substrate just wasn't super strong. And so, and the idea of putting down augers, the pools were not very good, but then we could always use a low rise adhesive, and that was just like a lifesaver, or
Yeah,
is
and
it,
then one
or
of
a
the things
lightsaber?
lightsaber. One of the things you find a lot of times with existing gyp or existing lightweight concrete, uh, that stuff was poured and it got wet. So the
Mm,
structural integrity of it was not like it should have been. The compressive strength was not at the point where it should have been. So when you go after it's been there for 15, 20 years, you start putting augers or penetrations in it, you're right. It kind of disintegrates. So with the foam, what we would do is we would come and we would do pull tests, and we could get, with the pull tester, we can get an uplift value and give either the membrane manufacturer or the architect, consultant, or specifier the option to actually adhere as opposed to put fasteners in there. Another place that you would want to use low-rise foam would be in a concrete deck, whether it's existing or new. Um, you know, if you've ever seen somebody, and I'm sure you have,
oh, I have.
somebody try to penetrate a concrete deck with fasteners, it's a backbreaking. It's absolutely backbreaking.
You have to pre-drill, and you'll run through drill bits after drill bits, especially because a lot of new roofers in the commercial industry, they'll buy the cheap shit, and they'll think that, oh, well, I'm not going to spend that kind of money. I can get this for this. And then they'll spend so much money on labor hours over the next couple of weeks, and they don't work. You have to use what works and spend the money on what works. But then they'd always have they'll try to sink their screws, and they'll be way too tall because the powder will fall down inside. And then they're like, no, it's just a nightmare. I've seen so many people having nightmares over that sort of thing. And then on top of that, I'm sure you probably mentioned this, is that NRCA calls structural concrete a non-nailable deck.
And
So if you
that's kind of where we're getting to using the foam. And one of the things that we find out when we're when a contractor's looking between fastening and foam, what they don't realize is that the labor savings with foam, even though the foam is going to be more expensive than the fasteners, labor savings are pretty much going to wipe that out. The difference between the cost of the actual product. On top of that, the wind uplifts that you get with foam compared to fasteners is much higher. For example, our Bormax product gets a 1-990 2-inch
what?
Yeah.
I mean, is that like category 12? I'm just kidding. Hurricane.
Yeah,
That's pretty big. That's a lot.
Beyond any kind of specifications.
Yeah.
So those are and here's the thing, not every job is made for foam, and not every job is made for fastening. So
yeah,
and that's where you would use somebody like me to come take a look at the roof or come do a pull test, and and basically let you know if the roof is suitable to be foamed out.
And that's what I really like too, is that you guys are more of an ancillary. I mean, meaning that I know that you guys warranties can be, you guys have contracts with several manufacturers so like ones that are listening to the show, they can actually get warranties through their manufacturer, maybe they're working with, because you guys had already paved the way with those manufacturers. So not all manufacturers use ICP, but a lot of them do. And so it's a great thing to have, because it's like, you're not a competitor. It's not like you're forced to do something, but you are a perfect choice. You know what I'm saying?
Typically what will happen is we'll indemnify, the warranty of the manufacturer. So if they're doing a 20-year warranty or a 15-year warranty or whatever, we will be like a sandwich in that warranty, kind of like we're a sandwich in the roof. And so we will indemnify that actual warranty. One of the things that I always, when I come to train, because what we found out from the very beginning, that if we can get in front and we can train the contractor up on the roof, get the guy who's spraying comfortable with the product. We like doing it on the roof because we can do it in the shop, but those guys that are spraying that foam, their element is up on the roof and they retain knowledge, and this is their craft. So we like to get up there and we like to get them spraying. And one of the things that I always tell them is that, look, I'm not the inspector. I'm the guy to keep the inspector, away. So if you listen to me, you're 9/10 there. So that's kind of why I like my job, because I'm a consultant. I'm there for the marathon and not the sprint. Again, that's why I say not every job is suitable for foam. So
Yes.
you would consult somebody like me, and not just my company, but our competitors have just as quality driven people as we do. So it's definitely something you want to make the right decision when using either fastening or foaming down.
And I always say that, I hear a lot of contractors always like, oh man, the inspector. And it's like, no, look at them as one of your employees, an extension of your own personal quality assurance department, because you don't want that roof to leak.
Yeah.
And if your guys made a mistake and you don't know about it, and that inspector finds it, well, hey, that inspector really helped your company to protect your company's name. So I like inspectors. I don't want to be like close friends with an inspector, because I don't want him to start treating me so nice that if my guys did something wrong, that I don't find out about it. I want to know. So
Absolutely. That's why training is so important. And that's like I'm reiterating now. Doing the training on the roof, getting in the contractor's element, and then giving them a resource to call, if they do have questions after we leave, because that's our job. That's what we do.
So what about testing? So actually, before we even get into testing, maybe we should just mention, do we have, let's see here. No, I think the mistakes will be next. Let's ask this question though, is why is it so important to do testing? And what are things that they should know before installing this roof?
Well, testing, typically every foam manufacturer is going to have a plethora of testing. They're going to have testing from factory mutual testing. They're going to have Miami-Dade, Florida Building Code. They're going to have typically independent testing as well, and then also UL. That's going to, when a roof is specified by either the manufacturer or a roof consultant or an architect, depending on what they're looking for. They're looking for a certain uplift value, or looking for a certain R value. That's when they're going to decide what kind of testing to look at, and as long, so they're looking for actual assemblies, roof nav assemblies, and essentially what it does, it gives a building owner, it gives an insurance company, gives them the good feeling that, hey, this assembly is going to withstand, say, a Category 3 hurricane. And and so that's basically why testing is done, and it's becoming more and more prevalent every single day. We spend literally thousands and thousands of dollars every year to keep our testing up to date and to test new assemblies as new products come out. You have to stay on top of it and test new assemblies.
And a lot of these tests are like $30,000 per test.
Yes.
Yeah. So
factory mutual could be more than that, depending on what scale that the testing is.
So a lot of contractors may not realize this too, crossing over to commercial, but even in residential, that the manufacturers spend millions of dollars on the testing, so that way you can put down the product. And so that's the reason why, if they're doing the testing, they got these values where they know what's going to withstand that Category 3 hurricane. But how can the contractor then, sometimes they'll just say, well, here's the job, I'll just go up and start doing it. And they don't do their own testing. So why is it important for a contractor to do their testing before trying to install an adhesive system?
You're referencing, say, a pull test, an uplift test, a field test. Well, the main reason is because you want to make sure that substrate is compatible to the foam. You could have an existing, say, built up roof that that is holding moisture. And if you don't do a moisture scan or do a pull test, the foam will not stick because
oh, but it's your fault as a manufacturer. No, it's not.
yeah. Another thing is if you're going over metal, especially new metal, you want to make sure. I mean,
It's got oil sometimes, residual oil.
Yeah, it has to be prepped. So you want to make sure that it's prepped the right way. And you at that point, you probably want to do a shovel test where you glue a piece of ISO down and let it set up, and then make sure that it rips spacer, so that way that you prep that surface accordingly.
Yeah. And so when you're teaching, or your company is teaching contractors on how to do a pull test, so basically you're going to put down some adhesive, and then you're gluing down a wood board. What size is typical for y'all?
For us, it's a 2 foot by 2 foot board, but there are other pull testers that are 1 foot by 1 foot. I actually use both. Typically the 2 by 2 is an ANSI Spry approved pull tester. So if you have an architect or a consultant involved, or you're going to have an engineer that's going to stamp the results, you're going to use a 2 by 2. Typically, if it's a manufacturer involved and they're the only ones that are basically issuing the warranty, and then you would use a 1 by 1.
That's good news. So guys, remember what Dan just said here, and Daniel, just kidding. But remember what Dan just said is that if you have an engineer that's going to be stamping this, even though the manufacturer only requires a 1 by 1, we want to make sure that the pull test is done to the standard of that engineer. And so, and that means we would want to use the 2 by 2. And that can be, can they ask, they can buy their own pull testing equipment, but can they also ask a manufacturer like ICP?
That is typically a service that we provide, as well as our competitors. So yes.
That's incredible.
And the 2 foot by 2 foot test is typically the exception to, the required 2 foot by 2 foot would be the exception to the norm. Most of the ones that are accepted would be the 1 foot by 1 foot tester.
That's good. But it's always good, because if the roofers listening to the program keep that in the back of their mind, what we are always trying to teach with the roofing business builder is to do your due diligence ahead of time. And I tell you, it'll save you tens of thousands of dollars in years of your life if you follow some of these examples, because we've seen so many crazy things. And they don't realize it's like, oh, I lost $20,000 or whatever on this one thing. No, worse than that, you lost a reputation. You lost the confidence of this customer that also may know 20 other people that would have became your customer over the next 3 to 5 years. And so, and then the reputation in the neighborhood. If and one inspector goes around shooting off their mouth,
word gets around.
Yeah, that gets around quick. Our reputations get around really quick. So is there any mistakes that you've seen that contractors need to avoid when it comes to low-rise adhesive?
Yeah. And low-rise adhesive, it's a basic two-part system. You have an A side, which is your hardening agent, your actual glue. You have a B side, which is your foam. So basically what they do is they mix in a mixing tip. So the mixing tip has an auger, and once you stop spraying for more than a minute or minute and a half, that tip is going to be no longer good. At that point, you would take the tip off, and when you start up again, you're going to use a new tip. Now, what happens is if you spray with the tip where the chemical is cured in the auger, you're typically going to get what's called a crossover. You're going to get one side of the chemical coming back and going on the other side of the hose. So typically what we find is the B side will cross over and it'll clog the A side. So once you start back up again, you're getting foam. You're getting plenty of foam coming out. It looks really good, but you're not getting the A side, which is the actual glue. It's the actual hardening agent.
Oh.
There's a couple different ways that you can tell if you're off ratio. If you're actually B rich and not getting enough A, once the foam hardens, it's gonna feel like dust and you'll know right away because it won't be sticking. Uh, on the A side, if you get too much A, once you lay the boards down and you walk on them and you hear like a cracking or creaking sound, you'll know that was A rich. So one of the things that we always try to do is after, explain to the contractor, the guy spraying the chemical, that once you're done spraying these 2 tanks out, pick them up, check them out. They're never going to be exactly empty the same, but they should be pretty darn close. If you pick up the A side and it's full, and you pick up the B side and it's empty, you're going to know. And then you're going to know that, hey, that last area that we just did, we've got a problem. Another thing, and probably.
Oh, and what's the solution to that though? Is trade out the tips?
Yes. Change your tips. If you do cross over a hose and you catch it pretty quick, you can save the chemical. Just put a new hose on it.
Mm-hmm.
Again,
so always have extra hoses too, right?
Yeah. Well, we give 1 hose with every kit, and I think our competitors do as well. So those hoses, even though they used to be reusable, we used to do 1 to every 4 kits. So if you're in a pinch, you could actually change that hose out and take it to another kit once you're done. Best practice would be to get another hose. We sell hoses separately, and so do our competitors.
That's really cool. And what's kind of cool too is there's other manufacturers of low-rise adhesive where you have to buy thousands and thousands of dollars worth of equipment. So that is kind of a neat thing that with your company that you don't have to buy very expensive equipment.
There's pretty much no equipment involved. Another thing you want to make sure with any 2-part foam adhesive is the chemical needs to be typically between 70 and 90 degrees when you start. If it's cold outside, what do we do? Oh no. Well, typically what you'll do is you'll build a hot box on the roof. And all you need is like a 4-sided ISO box and a shop light in there. It'll keep the chemical within range.
Maybe a small fire, like a campfire.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that because I've seen guys build a hot box and put a Leister in there.
Oh no!
Come in the morning, and the A sides will over pressurize and they'll pop.
Oh no!
now, typically these products are not flammable, but they are under pressure. So that's one of the things that you need to understand about them.
What about leaving them inside? Maybe if they have a moving van or one of those box trucks or something that they have their equipment in, if they have a heating source in there, or I've heard some contractors even leaving their truck on super hot and then leaving the truck running at the site. And how long does it take for that? Say if they were at say 50 degrees to get back up to 70 to 90?
Oh, in a hot truck, maybe 30 minutes.
Well, that's good. Okay. That's some really good information for the ones listening to the show. That's awesome. Is there any other mistakes or things that you could give to the roofers that maybe they're entering this field and they're in the back of their minds, they need to keep this in mind that will save them a lot of money from mistakes they could possibly make?
Yes, make sure that your deck is clean and properly prepared. If there's loose impediments on the deck, or say there's a coating and the coating's flaking, the glue's only going to be as strong as the weakest part of the roof. So if you've got dust and residual, say, asphalt that has not been properly cleaned off, you're not going to get the adhesion and the uplift values that you may have done a pull test and achieved.
Yeah, so they really need to reach the heart of their technicians to always do the right thing and really strongly help them to realize that what they do really reflects upon not only their own reputation, but the reputation of the whole company that they work for. So that's cool. It's great to do the right thing. It feels good. It feels better. Sometimes we can be lazy when we're younger. I know when I was younger, it's like, oh, that's not that big of a deal. But sometimes it turns out to be a big deal and it can cost some money. That's so cool. Well, I'm so happy that you're on the show today, Dan. How can contractors maybe connect with you if they resonated with some of the things and maybe had some more questions? Would it be okay for them to give you a shout?
Absolutely. Whether they're using my product or competitor product, if they need some advice or they have a question, I mean, like I said, I'm going on year number 12 doing this. My email address is dferris, DFERRIS at icpgroup.com. And that's just like a Ferris wheel. And my phone number is, and I'm based out of the Houston area. We have a plant in Tomball. My phone number is 832-458-8324.
So my guest today on the Roofing Business Builder podcast was Dan Feris with ICP. Thank you so much, Dan.
Thank you, Daniel. It was great seeing you again.
You
And I look
too.
forward to talking to you in the future.
So that was my interview with Dan Feris. And wasn't that great? We learned a lot today. We learned that it's really important to do testing to make sure that if we're going to go over a roof, we want to make sure there's no moisture in there. So if we're using the adhesives, they're going to work properly. We also learned how the manufacturer does testing, and we learned why we can use low-rise adhesives in our roofing projects when it comes to a non-nailable deck, or say something like lightweight concrete where maybe it's just not strong enough. So I hope you really enjoyed that part of the show. But now it's time for Did You Know? Did you know that most entrepreneurs create a job and not a business? What do I mean by that? They create a job and not a business? Well, here, let me ask you this question. If you're on your yacht for more than 1 month, can your business run itself? If you're on your yacht for a month, maybe 3 months, will your business still run itself? Because otherwise, you've only created a job for yourself, not a business. So, things you might want to start thinking about is automation and delegation. How can you structure your business to run itself through automation and delegation? And there's a few more things. And if you'd like to learn more about that, please check out the Roofing Business Builder website and learn more information there. So that was it for the show. I hope you enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you on the next Roofing Business Builder podcast. Until then, remember this: I don't always consult on commercial roofing, but when I do, I make millionaires. Stay wealthy, my friends.